We continue now at the top of Daf 85b Mesechet Sanhedrin. This is Sanhedrin Daf 85b. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought a brisa which makes a distinction in a situation where, let's say, a person is being brought out to be killed by the court, and then if someone strikes him or someone curses him, if that person who strikes him or curses him is not related, is an acher, is just another person, so then we say that person is exempt. But if it's his son who strikes him or curses him, so then we say that the son is liable. The Gemara initially said that this should be a proof against Rav Sheshes, because we're probably talking about a situation where the person or the son is acting as an agent of the court. And the point is that a regular person can be an agent of the court in terms of the death penalty, etc., but the son is not allowed to be an agent of the court. That would go against what Rav Sheshes said. And the Gemara now is in the middle of explaining the brayse according to Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes explains that we're not talking where the son or this person is acting as an agent of the court. Rather, the reason why, if a different person does it, the reason why he is pater is because this person being brought out to be killed is not a mekuyim sheba'amcha. He's not someone that's going to be sustained by the nation. He's someone that's actually being put to death. And therefore, we learn again from the pasuk, since it says v'nasi ba'amcha losor, we learn from that it has to be again someone who's mekuyim sheba'amcha. That's not the case over here, and that's why the person is exempt. And as the Gemara said in the previous summit, striking is compared to cursing, and again that's why there's an exemption there as well. But the Gemara asked, if that's the case, why isn't the son exempt? And the Gemara answers to that, midi dehave la'achar misa. The reason why the son is not exempt is because a son cursing the father after he dies is also a violation, and so therefore that doesn't help in this situation. And Rashi explains, midi dehave la'achar misa, similar to, let's say, it would be after death. The alfinan l'kamon, we're going to learn out later on, mekala la'achar misa chayiv. The next Mishnah is going to say that mekala la'achar misa is chayiv when it comes to a son cursing his father. V'im tomer, now if you're going to ask on this answer, v'hatnan makel la'achar misa pater, the same Mishnah is going to say that if a person strikes his father after death, we say pater, exempt in that case. V'hacha mechayiv le'yahaka, but over here in this brisa, it says that the son is liable on striking the father. To katani, because it says in the brisa, again on the previous summit, hiko v'kilalo, it says both striking him and cursing him. And Rashi explains, hainu taima depater makel la'achar misa. The answer is as follows. The only reason why someone is exempt when he strikes after death, mishum deba'inan chabura, because it needs to be a striking of the father that creates a wound. But after death, it's not considered a wound because there's no soul. The nafkale le'el mi nefesh, we learn it out from the word nefesh. But in this case, where the father is being brought out to be killed, ika chabura, so there's still going to be a wound in that situation. Techayu, because right now he is alive. Ela desofo lamus, the point is that he's going to die, he's being brought out to die, and that's why, again, by striking as well, la'achar misa, just like by cursing la'achar misa, there's a liability. By striking, even though technically la'achar misa, there's no liability, but in this case, it's not really la'achar misa, and therefore, again, by the son, there is going to be a liability. And the Gemara continues, my havela, so what's the conclusion in terms of the original question, whether a son can act as a shliach bezin against his father, let's say to strike his father or curse his father? Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna says, v'chein tana devei Rabbi Yishmael, it was also taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael, lachol ein haben nasa shliach la'aviv, lahakosa u'lakalalo, for all matters a son is not allowed to be an agent of the court against his father to strike him or to curse him, chutz mi mesis, unless his father was a mesis, one who incited others to worship avodah zarah, then the son is allowed to act as an agent of the court. Sharei Amra Torah, because the Torah says, Lo sachmo v'lo sachasa olav, when it comes to a mesis, we have no mercy, we don't cover for him, and therefore, again, by a mesis, we say the son is able to act as an agent of the court. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hamaka Avev v'imo, if somebody strikes his father or his mother, Eino chayav at sheyasa b'hen chabura, he's not liable until he makes a wound. And the Mishnah says, Zechomre b'mekal mi b'maka, in the following way, cursing is stricter than striking. Sha'mekala la'achar misa chayav, one who curses after death, meaning let's say the father already died and you curse him then, chayav, the son is liable, v'hamaka la'achar misa, but if he strikes him after he dies pater, then we say he is exempt. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Avev v'imo kilal, his father and his mother he cursed, and we learn from there, li'achar misa, we learn from there that even after they die, the prohibition still applies. Shayachal, because one might have thought, Hoel v'chayev b'make v'chayev b'mekalal, since a person is liable when he strikes his father or his mother, and he's also liable when he curses his father or his mother. So ma'make no chayev el mechayim, just like striking is only liable when they're alive, afa mekalal eno chayev el mechayim, so too by cursing, maybe one would say is only liable when they're alive. V'yod kal v'chomer, and furthermore we make the following kal v'chomer. When it comes to striking, it doesn't matter if he's shalo ba'amcha, he's not acting like he's supposed to act. It doesn't matter if he is. In both cases, you're going to be liable, lo chayebo la'achar misa, but by striking, where again you're liable in both shalo ba'amcha or ba'amcha, but lo chayebo la'achar misa, but he's not chayev after death. So makalo, so when it comes to cursing, shalo asabo, shalo be'amcha, kiva'amcha, where we don't treat shalo be'amcha like be'amcha, if the father's not acting appropriately, then there is no violation when the person curses his father. So eino din, shalo chayebo la'achar misa, certainly you should say that you're not chayev la'achar misa by makalo, that's what you would have said. Talmud lomar, that's why the pasuk says no. Aviv v'imo kilo, extra words in the pasuk say his father or his mother he cursed, and that means even la'achar misa, that means even after death. And Rashi explains, Aviv v'imo kilal kra yiseruhu. This is an extra part of the pasuk. The Aksiv Reisha Dekra, it already says in the beginning of the pasuk, Asher yikalas Aviv v'imo, that he curses his father or his mother. The full pasuk is Ki ish asher yikalas Aviv v'imo. When a man curses his father or his mother, Mos yumas, he'll surely die. Aviv v'imo kilal dam of bo. And then that's again the extra phrase, Aviv v'imo kilal dam of bo. And Rashi continues, when it comes to striking, even if he's shalo bi'amcha, you're still liable. Because by striking, it doesn't have that word bi'amcha to exclude when he's not doing the deeds of your nation. And Rashi points out, now this Tana Savar holds, lo makshin and hakol l'klala. The Tana of this Bryce holds we don't compare striking to cursing. This was mentioned on the previous Amud. In other words, by klala, it says the word amcha, we say it has to be osa ma'isa amcha. There's a question whether we compare hakot to klala. This brisa does not make that comparison. Memnei hamikra hamafsik bein time, because again there is a pasuk that is between them, that separates between them, and so therefore again the author of this brisa holds we do not compare hakot to klala hakot to klala. So again you might have thought that by klala you're not chayiv lachar misa. That's what this pasuk says, avav v'imo kilo, to say that even lachar misa klala is chayiv. And the Gemara continues, hanichol Rabbi Yonasan and demiyaser leikra avav v'imo kilo. This is good according to Rabbi Yonasan, who says that again, Aviv v'imo kilal is extra words in the pasuk. But according to Rabbi Yoshia, who says it's not extra, what are we going to say? And the Gemara brings the machlokas between Rabbi Yonasan and Rabbi Yoshia. The Tanya, as we learned in a brayso, ish. Again, the pasuk said ish asher yakalel, so it says ish twice. Matamad lomer ish. Why does it say ish twice? L'rabos bas tumtum v'androgonus, to include, even if it would be a daughter, it doesn't have to be a son. To include in the prohibition even a tumtum when we can't identify whether it's a son or a daughter, male or female, and androgonus where they have signs of both being male and female. These are all included in this prohibition of cursing the father or the mother. And then it says asher yakalel es aviv v'es imo. It says cursing the father and the mother. And so the Tana says, Ein li elo aviv v'imo. Now, reading the pasuk literally, maybe he has to curse both his father and his mother to be liable. Aviv shalo imo shalo aviv. What if he just curses his father, not his mother, or just his mother, not his father? I mean, from where do we know to read the pasuk in that fashion that it's father or mother? Talmud lomer. That's why the pasuk says again, aviv v'imo kilel. It says aviv v'imo kilel. The idea is aviv kilel, imo kilel. Whether he curses his father or he curses his mother, the idea over here is that the word yakalel is closer to aviv, and the word kilel is closer to imo, and that's saying cursing just the father and cursing just the mother is going to be chayiv. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia, these are the words of Rabbi Yoshia, and so you see that Rabbi Yoshia holds aviv imo kilel is not extra, because it's used for this idea to say it's the father or the mother. Rabbi Yonasan says, Mashma shnein kechru mashma echad v'echad b'fnei atzmo. In general, when a pasuk says, let's say, father and mother, it implies either both of them together, or it means to say either or. In other words, automatically, you don't need any extra pasuk to say father or mother. That's the normal reading of the pasuk. Unless the pasuk were to say the word yachdav together, then we would interpret father and mother together only, but it doesn't say yachdav over here, and so therefore we assume, Rabbi Yonasan says, that it's the father or mother anyway. And so it comes out again, according to Rabbi Yonasan, aviv v'imo kilel is extra. Those are extra words in the pasuk, and therefore we can use that for what we said above, that it applies even lachar misa. But according to Rabbi Yoshia, who says they're not extra, where does he learn? Minole, where does he learn? La'achar misa is chayiv by mekalel. And the Gemara says to that, nafkalei me'u mekalel aviv v'imo mos yumas. He learns it from an entirely different pasuk. This is in Sefer Shemos, where it says mekalel aviv v'imo mos yumas. From that pasuk, again, he's going to learn out this idea, even la'achar misa. brisa. The Gemara says, V'idach, now the other Tana, again, that's Rabbi Yoshi learning out from a Mekal Alav V'ima, but Rabbi Yonasan, who doesn't need that, so what is he doing with the pasuk in Shemos of Mekal Alav V'ima Mos Yumas? Ahumi Boile the Rabos Bas Tumtum V'androgonus. So that he needs that pasuk, again, to include a daughter, a Tumtum, and an androgynous. And the Gemara says, V'tepikle me ish ish. Well, why not learn it from the same thing that Rabbi Yoshi learned from the word ish ish? And to that, the Gemara says, Dibra Torah Kaloshan B'nei Adam. The Torah speaks just in the normal language of man. Ish ish is not considered extra. That's just the normal way that a person would speak. And that's why he does not learn anything from ish ish like Rabbi Yoshia does. And the Gemara continues, V'lisni chomer v'makami v'mekalel. We should say in our Mishnah that there's a stringency by striking one's father over cursing one's father. Shehamaka osabo shelo ba'amcha kiva'amcha, because by striking we treat a father who's not ba'amcha the same as ba'amcha, whether a person strikes his father and that father is acting in accordance with our nation, or whether he's not acting in accordance with our nation, the son is still liable. Masha ein ken b'mekalel, and that's not true by mekalel. By mekalel, again, it says it has to be specifically ba'osa ma'isa amcha. And so the Gemara says, Kasavar, the Tan of our Mishnah holds, Makshinan Hakal Klala, that when it comes to this issue, we do compare Hakah to Klala, and just like by Klala, it has to be Be'amcha, so too by Hakah, according to our Mishnah, it has to be Be'amcha. And the Gemara says, if that's the case, Leima Hani Tanoi Kahani Tanoi. So now we see a Machlokas Tanoim, whether we compare Hakah to Klala. Let us say that's the same Machlokas as we find in the following. The Tani Chada, because in one brisa it says, Kusi, that when it comes to a Kusi, Ata Mitsuva al Hakah also, so we are Mitsuva in terms of striking, you're not allowed to strike the Kusi, Via Ata Mitsuva al Kilalasa, but when it comes to cursing the Kusi, so there is no command against that. Betanya Idach, but there's another brisa that says, Iata Mitsuva lo al Kilalasa, v'lo al Hakah, that there is no command, whether with regards to cursing him, or whether with regards to striking. So how do we explain this machlokas tanoim, this machlokas between the brises? And the Gemara says, Savrua, right now we think the kuli alma kusim geirei emesein, that everybody agrees that kusim are geirei emesein. There's a question whether the kusim, whether the Samaritans, are they considered to be true geirim? Are they really converts? They're considered to be Jewish people who don't follow, they're not osamaisa amcha, they don't follow the ways of our nation, but they're still considered to be true converts. And the other opinion is Kusim Geirei Arayo, saying that they're considered to be converts because of the lions. That's a story in Tanakh that scared them. They're not genuine converts, and they're not genuinely considered to be Jewish. And so right now we think both brises here consider Kusim to be Geirei Emes. And my love, B'hakam Iflagi, and aren't they arguing about the following? The Marsavar, that one brisa holds Makshinan Hakah Klala. We compare Hakah to Klala, and so therefore it has to be Osa Maisa Amcha by both Hakah and by Klala, and that's why when it comes to the Kusim, we say that by both of them, again, there is no Iyata Mitzuva, there's no command with regards to cursing or striking the Kusi. Umarsavar, and the other brisa holds Lo Makshinan Hakah Klala. We don't compare Hakah to Klala, and therefore by Klala we say Iyata Mitzuva, you're not commanded because it's not Osa Maisa Amcha, but that condition doesn't apply to Hakah, and that's why Atamitsuva Hakah also. And the Gemara continues and says, Lo, no, it could be Dekuli Alma Lo Makshin Hakah Klala, that both brises, they do not compare Hakah to Klala. V'hachen, over here, B'hakam Iflagi, the machlokas in the brises is as follows. Marsav are Kusim Geirei Emes. And one says Kusim are Geirei Emes, they're considered to be Jewish, and it applies. Umarsav are Kusim Geirei Arayas, and the other one says Kusim are Geirei Arayas. Again, it was just because of the lions, and therefore these halachas do not apply to them, because again, they're not considered to be Jewish. And again, according to this explanation, the brisa that says that we are commanded with regards to striking the kusi, that's because geirei emesein, but that still doesn't apply to klala, because we say it's not osei ma'isa amcha. And the other brisa which says there's no command either with regards to striking or cursing, again, that brisa holds kusim geirei arayosein. But the Gemara says to that, if so, if that's your explanation, so hainu de katani Allah, so how do you explain what is said on that brisa? It says v'shoro ki Yisrael, that his ox, it's as if it is a Jewish ox. You can't possibly explain that line if we say Geirei Arayos. Rashi says, Ihachi the time of the Patur, Mishum the Geirei Arayos, and if you're going to say the reason for the Patur is because Geirei Arayos, so Hainu the Tana Allah Bitmiya, we're asking this question. How do you explain this Brisa? Bahachmas Nisa the Katani Eino Mitsuva, Lo al Hakasa, Lo al Kilalaso, that Brisa which says there's no command with regards both to striking and cursing. Katani, it says on that Brisa, V'shoro ki Yisrael, that the axe of the Kusi is like a Yisrael, meaning Shor Shalana Shanaga Ches shoro v'shoro shenagach shalanu, meaning if his shore, if our shore gores his shore, or his shore gores our shore, that we follow all the regular halachas by Jews. Tam mishalim chatzi nezek, umud mishalim nezek shalim, that a tam is going to pay half and a muad is going to pay full. V'ilu dovid kochavim. Now, if we consider like a non-Jew, so Tanan we learned in the Mishnah, shor shal Yisrael shenagach shor shal ovid kochavim pater. If an ox of a Jew gores an ox of a non-Jew, we say exempt. V'shal ovid kochavim shenagach shor shal Yisrael. And if a non-Jew, if the shore of a non-Jew gores the shore of a Jew, bein tam bein muad mishalim nezek shalim, it's always going to be nezek shalim. Doesn't matter if it's a tam or a muad. So that line cannot be explained. You have to say that the Brisa considers the kusim to be Jewish. And so the Gemara says, you're right. Ella rather shma mina. You do see from this behekesha plige, they are arguing about the hekesh. They're arguing whether we compare hakah to klala. Both Brisas actually consider the kusim to be Jewish. The question just is whether we compare hakah to klala in terms of an exemption by hakah. And the Gemara says shma mina. Indeed, we see that that is the case. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hagonev nefesh mi Yisrael, if somebody steals a soul from Klal Yisrael, a person kidnaps another person, Eino chayiv, he's not liable. Again, we said in the beginning of the parak that that's one of the cases of the nechnokin, of those who get the punishment of strangulation, but he's not liable at shiachnisen u'lereshus. So you have to actually bring the person that you are stealing into, he has to bring him into his reshus, meaning to say, it's not enough to imprison him in his own property, you have to bring him to your property, then you're liable. Rabbi Yehuda says, at shiachnisen, but you have to bring him in. He has to bring him into his reshus, and he also has to use the person that he kidnapped. Shenemar, as it says, v'esamer bo umecharu. It says hisamer bo, which means he has to use him, and also there's a requirement that he has to sell him. And the Mishnah continues, Hagonev espino. What if somebody steals his own son? Rabbi Yishmael beno shel Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka mechayev. Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka, says chayev. V'chacham and potrin, and the chacham say potter, and this will be explained. And gonav mi shechetzio eved v'chetzio ben chorin. Let's say he steals somebody who's a half slave but half free. Let's say, for example, the person was owned by partners and one partner freed him and the other did not. So what if he steals such a person? Rabbi Yehuda mechayev v'chacham and potrin. Rabbi Yehuda says chayev and the chacham say potter. If a person steals an eved, the halacha is potter. The question here is, if he's a half an eved, what is the halacha? And again, it's a machlokas tanoim in the Mishnah. And the Gemara says, "V'tanakama lo boy imor." Now the Tanakama doesn't require that you use the person that you steal. That's a pasuk. It says v'esamer bo. So how does the Tanakama argue with Rabbi Yehuda? And the Gemara says, "Amar Rav Acha brei de Rava." Rav Acha, the son of Rava, says, "Imor pachos mishava pruta ige benayu." The question is, what if he uses him just a tiny amount, less than a shava pruta? The Tanakama says that's sufficient. Rabbi Yehuda says no. It has to be imor. That's at least a pruta. That's what Rabbi Yehuda means when he says v'yishtamish bo. And the Gemara continues, "Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah." Rabbi Yirmiyah asks as follows. Gonvo machro yoshen mahu. What if he steals him and sells him while he is sleeping? Or machar isha ubra mahu. Let's say he steals a woman who's pregnant and he sells the uber, he sells the fetus. What would be the halacha in that situation? Yesh derech imor bekach. Is that considered usage? Oein derech imor bekach. Or is that not considered to be usage? The Gemara wants to clarify, what does this even mean? Well, why don't we say that there's no usage at all? You just had a case where he stole and sold, but there was no usage. And so the Gemara explains, lo no tzrich, it's necessary. The question is as follows. Yoshen de zogoled, let's say the person is sleeping and he just makes this small use by sitting or leaning upon the person. And Isha, let's say by the pregnant woman, we're talking specifically about the fetus, to ukma ba'ape zeka, that he puts the woman to block the wind, and specifically the area where she's pregnant, because she's larger, because she's pregnant, that's blocking the wind. So that was the usage of that fetus. So derech imor bekach, or ain't derech imor bekach, is that considered usage or not in terms of the halacha of hagonev nefesh mi Yisrael? The Gemara says again, what is that? Is that considered derechim or not? And the Gemara says teku. The Gemara leaves that as a question. And Rashi explains on the Mishnah. Rashi says shiachnisen l'reshuso dechsiv, because it's written in the pasuk v'nimtza biyado. It says it has to be biyado. V'tanya v'mechilta v'nimtza in mitzia b'chol makom ela be'edim. V'nimtza means that we find it to be true with witnesses. And what's biyado? Ein biyado ela b'reshuso. Biyado means in his reshus. That's where we learn the requirement that by gonev nefesh mi Yisrael he has to bring him into his reshus. And Rashi says on the Gemara, imor again is shimush, is usage, as we said. Gonvo machro kashu yashin ma'u lekamen meforesh lahaboy. The Gemara is going to explain what's the question in terms of when he's sleeping. Machar isha leubra, if he sells a woman for the fetus, meaning gonav isha muberes umachro leubra shalo machar aguf shalo. He didn't sell the woman, elashei uber machar. He's doing it that he's selling the fetus. Deleka imor lo b'yashin v'lo b'ubra. So then the Gemara said there's no usage by the case of sleeping or by the case of the pregnancy. And the Gemara then answered, the zaga led the samachal, he leaned upon him, or de ukma be'ape zeko, he put her in front of the wind. V'chol kama she'yav, and now she's a little larger. Moel yoser lahagan b'fnei haruach, that helps more in order to stop the wind. That's how he's getting a usage out of the fetus in that situation. And the Gemara continues, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ki motzei ish gonev nefesh me'echav, it says, a man steals a nefesh, ein li ela ish shaganav, I only know if the man is doing the stealing. Isha minayin, from where do you know that a woman also is prohibited? Talmud lomer v'gonev ish, there's another pasuk that says v'gonev ish, it means anybody who's doing the stealing. But ein li ela ish shaganav bein isha uvein ish, now I only know if a man steals a nefesh, whether a woman or a man, v'isha shaganav ish, and then the pasuk that says gonev ish says that a woman who steals a man. But isha shagon va'isha minayin, where do we know that if a woman steals a woman, that's also prohibited? Talmud lomer umeis haganav hahu, the pasuk says umeis haganav hahu mikol makam, that means in all situations, whether the woman steals a man or whether she steals a woman. And the Gemara continues, Tanya idach, we learned in another brayso, ki motzish gonev nefesh me'echav, again it says the man steals a nefesh, echad hagonev eso ish, ve'echad hagonev eso isha, whether the person steals a man or a woman, v'echad ger, v'echad eved meshuchrar, and whether it's a convert or a freed slave, v'katan, or whether he steals a minor, chayiv, in all of those cases he's liable, that's all considered to be a nefesh. Gonvo v'lo mecharo, let's say he steals and doesn't sell, or machro v'adayin yeshno b'reshus, or let's say he sells, but he never actually took the person he stole out of that person's reshus. He imprisoned him, let's say, in his own reshus, so Pater is exempt. As we said, he has to take him out of his reshus. Machro li'aviv o le'achiv o le'echad min hakrovim, let's say he sells him to his own father, meaning the person he stole, he sells him to his own father, the nignav's father, or the brother, or one of the relatives of the person that he stole. Chayiv, he is liable in that situation. That's considered to be selling. Hagonev eso avodim Pater, one who steals avodim, slaves, is going to be exempt. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Pei Vav Amud Aleph.